Donald Trump is now the first former American president ever to be convicted in a criminal trial, but it's unclear whether it could impact voters in November. According to the latest polling, nearly three-fourths of registered independents said a guilty verdict would make no difference to their vote, suggesting that any change may not be enough to alter the trajectory of the presidential race. Joining us right now is Frank Luntz, FIL Inc., and Jeff Horwitt, Hart Research partner. Good morning to both of you. Frank, let's start on the polling side. And you saw the verdict yesterday. You saw probably Joe and I and Becky debating this whole issue all morning. Does it have any impact? And not does it have an impact across the country, but do you think it has an impact on the independent-minded voter to the extent there are any left in some of these so-called swing states?
Yes, it does. And they aren't so-called. There's only 7 states that really can move in any direction. And roughly 4% of those state voters are truly swing voters. We took a look at them last night. You'll be reading about it in the New York Times. And basically, they thought the verdict was correct. They do not want Donald Trump to go to jail. It did give some doubt to these undecided voters about supporting Trump. We saw the tiniest bit of movement, but this is May. The election is in November. It was not significant, even though 34 counts of guilty, even though he was found guilty in every single one of them. The reaction, the voice of them was, should this have even gone to trial? The fact that it went to trial, was it a fair discussion of all the issues, which most of them thought that it was? I don't believe that this case is going to change the outcome. I don't believe that this case is going to be significant on the 6th of November. What I do believe is that Donald Trump raised so much money off of it. And I also believe that we're more divided now, more angry now, more polarized now than we have ever been. And I don't know how we're going to come back together after Election Day.
Jeff?
So, look, we are hours after this verdict. What we do know is that Trump was found guilty on 34 felonies. That is very significant. That's never happened before in the history of this country. So we don't yet know how this is going to play out. I do agree with Frank that there are indications that voters in the middle, those voters who are up in the air, do care about this. Now, it's not a matter of most caring. It's a matter of on the margins, who cares and how they're going to move. In our NBC polling in January, it was then a hypothetical question. We did ask voters if they found Trump was found guilty, how that would impact them. The ballot, our overall trial heat changed, but Trump lost by 4 points in that hypothetical situation. And in a very tight election, that's the difference between winning and losing. So it doesn't have to be that many voters who move. It's at the margins of a very narrow, divided country, as Frank said. That really does make a difference between winning an election and losing. And those voters that moved more than others are those really critical voting blocks in this election. So it's younger voters moved more, Latino voters, independents, and Republicans. And these are the same Republicans you were seeing in the primary when the primary is over, who are still voting against Donald Trump because of their dissatisfaction. And the 34 felonies here really just reinforces that.
So, Jeff, hold on, Frank. So, Jeff, if it happens that way, swings to 4 points, and Joe Biden is reelected, are you okay with the process of how that occurred? You're okay with how this happened? That's the way it should be done?
I'm okay with our system working, and someone who was going to trial.
You know what I'm saying. And there are varying opinions on it, but so if Trump would have won if this didn't happen, and he doesn't win because this did happen, and people say, you see that reasonable people disagree that this.
Well, there's some people
looks
who,
like
but there's some people who believe he wouldn't have won in 2016.
This looks like a banana.
If this had been public.
This looks like a banana republic, and it looks like a weaponization of the justice. This would not have happened to anybody else, and it would only have happened in New York with Alvin Bragg, with the judge that was, obviously contributed to Joe Biden, and with 12 people.
Okay.
You're going to impeach the honor of 12 independent jurors who were chosen during voir dire.
So
I can
both
answer
sides.
From a county where Trump lost by 85 points. By 85. I am not the judge, the DA. No, not the judge.
Not the
jurors who chose.
They had no choice. They had no choice. They had no choice after the judge's instructions.
Guys,
go ahead, Jeff.
We did 2 focus groups last night. We did 2 focus groups, and actually, you're going to be bothered by this, but both of you are right. The public does believe the Justice Department weaponized its ability to get involved in a problem like this. They do believe that our judicial system has now been weaponized, but they also believe that Donald Trump is guilty. So you can have both of those. And no one wants him to go to jail. Nobody wants him to be punished. They think that there are other challenges that are more serious. But
Guilty
I want
of
to
what,
emphasize.
Guilty of what? Guilty of what?
Guilt that he did something wrong. They believe that he paid someone.
Right. Well, that's since 2016. He's done something wrong every day, according to most Democrats.
You're going to get a chance to read the entire transcript in Sunday's New York Times. I want to emphasize that this is not just an issue of whether someone went to Trump or Biden because of what happened. This is also an issue of turnout. What I've tried to emphasize is that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. What you could have among these undecided voters is simply a decision. I don't like Biden's age. I don't like Trump's behavior. I don't believe RFK is an alternative, so I'm not going to vote. What I believe is going to be the final outcome here is that these 4%, and it's a tiny sliver, but a whole lot of them are going to stay home. And so it's going to be whoever drives their turnout ends up winning.
Okay. Frank, based on that, though, if it turns off the independent voters and they say forget it, does this mobilize Trump supporters who wouldn't have turned out otherwise?
You have no idea how mobilized they are. We started because I've been recruiting people for the next set of focus groups, which will be tomorrow night. People don't say, yes, I'll participate if you're a Trump voter. They say, hell yes. They say, damn yes. And they say words that'll get you guys fined that I won't repeat on air. They are so angry. And that's the reason why more people donated to Donald Trump in the last, 15 hours than at any point in the campaign. They are so mobilized and so energized. Even so, they're not going to defend him because of his behavior. They're going to defend him because of his policies. And we need to draw that distinction. As pollsters, it is not that they love Donald Trump in what he does. It's that they love Donald Trump in the inflation, in immigration, in these various policies that he's advocating.